to our newest episode of Margaux Moments, a series of conversations, insights, and stories from our amazing family of Go Girls.
And this week, we are so excited to share an episode with Serena Wolf. She is an author, a blogger, an accomplished chef, and also one of our good friends. I started following Serena on Instagram a long time ago now, and she's one of my very favorite people to follow. She's super funny, she's very real and honest and refreshing. So Sarah sat down with Serena and can't wait to hear more.
Oh, hi, Serena.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you?
I am at my dad's place up in Maine. I've been, I live here now. I've been here for over 2 months.
I'm back to my childhood bedroom, so there's that.
I respect that. My family is not here, so it's just been my husband and I, but this is like my ultimate happy place, so I've been feeling incredibly lucky and grateful to be here, and also this is like the most badass kitchen ever. So
your backdrop is A+ today.
Well, I'm really excited to do a little bit of easy cooking with you today. This is one of my all-time favorite recipes, so I hope you are excited about it. It's also going to feed you. I don't know how many you're feeding, but this should feed you for a couple days.
Also too, I've been looking for easy recipes that are just easy to fit in at the end of the day or the middle of the day whenever you're cooking, because cooking at home all the time can feel like a lot, especially when you're an amateur cook like me. You know, you're probably used to this, so it's a little bit less stressful for you, but I'm all about easy, minimal dishes and also things that can possibly feed you for the next few days.
And I mean, to be fair, I was thinking about it, and I don't think I've ever cooked 3 meals a day for, 2 months in my life. I mean, living in New York, just going out, having regular, restaurant routines and delivery access is so easy. And yes, typically I'm cooking most of the day every day, but even I'm running incredibly low on ideas and I'm exhausted, and I can't imagine how much more stressful it is for people who have been instantly thrown into the deep end throughout this entire, crazy state of the world, and now have to fend for themselves with little to no experience.
Yes, well, thank goodness there's Uber Eats. But for someone like me who just, moved out of was living with a studio apartment kitchen for 3 years, where I had like a single burner and no dishwasher, I really, I'm a little bit rusty on my cooking skills. So you'll have to talk me through each of these steps. But I guess, why don't you first tell us what we're cooking up today?
So we are going to make the greens and grains, which is a recipe from my newest cookbook, The Due Diet Dinner Time. It's in the Sexy Sides chapter, but this is one of my favorite sassy desk lunches, which is what I like to call what I make for work lunches. And they also fit the criteria if you are somebody that takes your lunch to work, which is basically, for me, something that can be served at room temperature, could be made the night before, tastes really delicious, doesn't smell offensive in any way, shape, or form, should you be sharing small spaces with coworkers. But this I love to eat as a sassy desk lunch, or just as a really simple vegan meal. I love it as a light dinner, but you can also add whatever protein you like. Some grilled salmon, grilled chicken or steak is also amazing with it. And it has a handful of basic pantry staples in here, but all of my recipes are meant to be used as roadmaps. And I know that for new cooks, it can be really hard to riff on a recipe. I know that people take recipes as law and then start to panic if they don't have one thing. They're like, oh, never mind, I can't make this. But the truth is, substitutions are a beautiful thing. We have to be really flexible, and the more you sort of practice making substitutions, the more confidence you're going to gain in the kitchen. So for example, today I was so excited to make this with you, and then I went to the pantry and I was like, I'm missing 4 of the things that we need. So it's going to be the perfect example of how to work with what you got. The base really is going to be a great, like the title suggests, is going to be greens, and a grain. The original recipe calls for farro, which we do have today, and arugula. But again, once we start cooking, I'm going to talk you through substitutions for basically every single ingredient in the dish. It's a really simple grain salad, and it holds up really well. And I actually think it tastes even better the next day.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited about this, and I can't wait to get going. But
we should get right to it, I think. Are you prepped and ready to go?
I am prepped and ready to go. Why don't you just run me through the list one more time so I make sure?
Yes. So we're going to start with some farro, which we've cooked in either chicken broth, vegetable broth, or water. Do we have that cooked?
I got mine right here. I actually, I subbed in something. I riffed a little bit without permission, but I subbed in rice because I didn't have farro. And I didn't.
Amazing. I was going to say, the base of this recipe is obviously greens and grains. The grain can be anything you want. I love farro because it has a really nice nutty chew, and also it absorbs flavors. So if you do cook it in broth, it's going to absorb that. I love quinoa in this. I love any sort of rice. And also if you are somebody that happens to stock something like barley or even wheat berries, I always find stuff like that in the very back of my cabinet, which has been coming in quite handy these days. All of those things will work. Basically, you're going to want, at the end of the day, like 2.5-ish cups of a cooked grain.
Okay, perfect.
Next, we have 2 cups of arugula. What do you have that you're working with for a green?
I do have arugula.
Amazing. Okay, so if you didn't have arugula, great subs would be baby kale, spinach. Those would be my top picks. But if you had to use something like an actual lacinato or curly kale, I would just like massage that with a dressing first. But really, again, any green will do. Edamame, that was a tough one. Do you have that?
I do not have edamame, but I swapped in peas because they look so
nice. Love it. I am going to use some chickpeas. That's what I happen to have. White beans would also be great. If you do use edamame, just thaw it first. What I like to do is just pop it in a strainer like you would pasta and run some warm water over it for a minute or two. It'll thaw really, really quickly. And then we have half a cup of finely chopped scallions.
Yep, I've got my scallions and then the other mint
herbs
right here.
Did you have mint?
I did have mint for another recipe, but
I'm so impressed. I have no mint today. I am working with exclusively cilantro, so I just upped the cilantro factor a little bit. Basil would also be awesome though. And then from a nut perspective, I have almonds. What do you have?
I also have almonds.
Amazing. Peanuts are also great. Cashews, use whatever you like. And then do you have a lemon and a lime?
I have my lemon and lime juice right here.
Amazing. So I'm actually going to show you a tip for squeezing those when we get to it, but the combination of lemon and lime is kind of key here. If you don't have both, just use 2 lemons or 2 limes, or more like 3 limes, especially if they're small. But the combination of lemon and lime in salad dressings or anything does add such an unexpected, like, hop of sweet tartness that you don't get when you just use one on their own. It's one of those things that people always comment on when I do it. They'll be like, oh, this is so delicious. What's in the dressing? And it's always that combo. I do the same thing with guacamole as well. So if anybody wants a hot tip, put lemon juice and lime juice next time when you make your guacamole.
I've never made a dressing with both lemon and lime. I mean, and we're talking about the like handful of dressings that I've ever made.
Yeah.
But I've never made a dressing with both lemon and lime. So I'm really excited to see how that tastes.
I'm glad that I get to introduce you to something brand new today. I'm also missing a jalapeno, which makes me very, very sad. Do you have a jalapeno?
I love spice, so I do have a jalapeno.
So I used my last one last night, which is devastating, but I have some red pepper flakes that I'm going to sub. You could also just use a little bit of cayenne in the salad dressing itself. And if you don't like heat in general, you could easily leave out the jalapeno or seed it, although seeding it is kind of annoying, and like a seeded jalapeno doesn't actually add that much to the final dish. Some salt and pepper, and then also toasted sesame oil. Did we have that at home?
That was a stretch. I went for peanut oil. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that'll work. I think in general, when it comes to toasted sesame oil, it is one of those pantry staples that I consider a staple that you probably won't find on a lot of other like essentials lists. But I do recommend picking it up because this one tiny bottle will last you a year. You're never going to use more than like a couple teaspoons in a recipe. We're using a tablespoon today, and that is a lot, but it has a very distinct flavor and like really adds this sort of nutty, toasted flavor to recipes, and you never really want to cook with it. Like, it's more of a finishing oil. So these are all of the things that we're working with. Oh, and maple syrup.
Yes, I have maple syrup. So for the oil, since I don't have sesame, do you think olive oil or peanut oil? I can use one or the other.
I would go olive oil actually for this if we're not going with the toasted flavor. And then for maple syrup, just, I hate, to pull out my Ina here, but like, we do want a good quality maple syrup. You don't want to be using like an Aunt Jemima in this. This jug, again, will last you a very long time. I buy all things I love in aggressive quantities like that so that I can just keep them in the fridge or pantry long term. This is very much, once you have your grain cooked and your edamame or whatever your bean is like ready to go, it's very much a dump and stir recipe, which is my favorite type of recipe, especially when we are doing a lot of cooking for ourselves these days. So I am going to push some of this off to the side so I have a little bit of room. Move my ingredients over here, and then let me grab one mixing bowl.
Okay, and I've got a big bowl with a spoon. Anything else I should grab for?
Let's see. You're gonna need. You have everything measured out. So, do you have tongs by any chance?
I do have tongs. Let me grab.
Tongs will make it much easier to toss the salad, and then also tongs and a whisk.
Okay, I've got both of those.
Okay, perfect. So you already have your citrus ready to go. So pour that into your mixing bowl first. I'm actually going to show you, just a hot tip in case we have anybody who is not a cooking connoisseur watching this right now. When I squeeze lemon juice, I like to just squeeze it directly through my hand like this, and you'll catch any seeds as you're squeezing. And obviously I have clean hands right now, but I'm not somebody who likes to dirty single-use kitchen tools. So sure, you could get out your citrus press if you want to, or use a fine mesh strainer, but at the same time, hands serve you well in this case. So once I squeeze this, I'm also going to show you a quick tip for a lime. I did get one rogue seed in there, and then you can just toss any little seeds in your hand off to the side. I have a stack of kitchen towels like this. Highly recommend investing in some of those.
I should grab one for myself too.
Yes, just because I found myself back in the day going through so many paper towels, and now I just throw these in the wash every day and it's no big deal. For the lime, what I like to do when I'm juicing a lime, especially like this is kind of a sad hard one, which you can tell when it's really dark, is rub it like with the palm of your hand, roll it back and forth on a cutting board like this, which will help to loosen up the juices inside. And then once you cut it in half, I like to take a fork over here and then just stick the fork right into the center of the lime, just like you're spearing it like this. And then when you squeeze, just sort of wiggle the fork back and forth, and it helps get all of the juice out. So this is great for dressings. This is also great for cocktails. I
could have used this for Cinco de Mayo.
Yes, exactly. Like if you're making a margarita, you're gonna want to get all of the juice out of your limes, because what I always see is like a pile of discarded lime carcasses that are only half squeezed, and I'm like, we can double down on those. So now that we have the citrus squeezed, I'm going to add a tablespoon of the toasted sesame oil. So add your olive oil into your bowl. Now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons from my outrageously large jug of maple syrup in here. And if you wanted to use honey, you absolutely could do that as well. This recipe is vegan as written, so I just like to use maple syrup, but I also like to use maple syrup in dressings because it does have a really unique flavor. Like it does have that sort of mapley tinge that I find really delicious. And then I'm also going to get out my whisk. If you don't have a whisk on you, just use a fork or a spoon, and really whisk until everything is well combined. So next thing we're gonna do is add our green directly to the dressing.
Okay.
And this, I wanna get it all in there. The adding the grain to the dressing first is important because you want to make sure that the grains are fully saturated and soak up some of the dressing. If you add the greens and everything else first and then add the grains, they're not going to soak up quite as much of the dressing. And this just like makes every little bite that you get of the grain that much more flavorful. And you'll notice once you get the grain in there that like it's pretty much immediately absorbing a lot of the dressing. I'm gonna season this with a little bit of salt and pepper.
Okay.
You can, there's a specific amount of salt, like quarter teaspoon in the recipe, but salt is really a guideline because if you cook your grain in broth, let's say, lots of broths have different sodium levels, so you're really just going to want to adjust things as you go. And this goes for any recipe. It's really hard though, remember, if you over salt something to dial it back. So I'm like, start small and keep adding. And most of my recipes call for kosher salt. So if you're not using kosher salt, if you're using table salt, always start with half as much salt.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about kosher salt because I saw that your recipe specified kosher. So why kosher salt versus non-kosher salt?
Kosher salt. I'm like, I wish I had, I think I do have my box. Hold on. It's a, yes. So I'm like, I want to Vanna White with this because this is like my favorite thing in my kitchen. Kosher salt has a cleaner flavor than regular table salt just because it doesn't have iodine or anything else in it. Not that that's bad, it's just different. And it also has much larger flakes and they're a little bit craggier, so they adhere better to the surface of things like meat, which is wonderful, but it's also much easier to pinch. So it's easier to control the amount you take. Like I usually keep some in a bowl by the stove and I reach in and I'll pinch a little bit. If I did that with table salt, I would regularly be over salting things because you just grab so much in a pinch. And it's, like I said, once you over salt, it's very hard to dial it back. So invest in some kosher salt. This costs $2.50 and it will last you like a year. So now that we have the grains in with the dressing, we're gonna add all of our other ingredients. So I'm gonna add the arugula first.
Herbs, everything.
Herbs, everything. Hold off on the nuts because I want to specify some things about that. But get your arugula, your what are you using instead of edamame? Peas. Your peas in there. I'm excited to see how the peas turn out. I've never done this with peas before.
You know, it's a weird thing, but I really love peas. I feel like it was like
I think peas are delicious.
childhood food, but I really love peas.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, and this is pretty much just for presentation purposes, but I'm gonna add half of my nuts. Save half of your nuts because we're gonna use that to make our dishes extra pretty later. And this is where the yeah, sorry.
Jalapeno should go in right now, right?
Yes, jalapeno too.
Awesome.
And then this is where the tongs come in really handy. I always love to use tongs to mix salad or my hands. That sounds weird, but like it's what happens with salads, especially in this vein. All the heavy stuff tends to sink to the bottom. So really getting in there with tongs or with your hands and helping everything get coated in the dressing and then getting all the farro up from the bottom as well is super helpful.
Because you mentioned massaging kale a few minutes ago. I feel like I learned the importance of massaging kale from watching you cook on your Instagram. So can you tell everyone why one should massage their kale? Because I have found it makes a big difference.
I feel very passionately about massaging kale, which never gets less creepy to say. But the truth is I always find that when people say they hate kale, it's because they've never had massaged kale. So when you massage kale, and when I when anybody talks about massaging kale, they literally mean picking up the kale leaves and rubbing them between your fingers with olive oil, an acid like a vinegar or lemon juice, or just whatever dressing you're using for the salad. And as you rub, it breaks down those tough fibers in the kale and makes the kale really tender. It will also like darken a shade in color. But if you've had a massage kale salad, you know, like when you bite into it, it's not tough and you don't get that sort of bitter grassy flavor. It's like delightful. It's a whole new kale world. So always massage your kale. And the great thing about massage kale is it holds up in the fridge for like 5 to 7 days. So you can do it at the beginning of the week. It's one of the few salads that I'm like, make a massage kale salad, eat it all week. Whereas any other salad, this will hold up decently well, but any other salad with a soft green, like a mesclun or, you know, even an arugula salad that's mostly greens, that's gonna wilt once you dress it. Like there's just no way to avoid it. So it always tastes a little sad when you eat it the next day. So this is what we're gonna do now. First of all, very important to taste as you go. So you may need to adjust your seasonings.
1 second. Okay, what do you think?
So good. I forgot that because I'm missing my jalapeno. Excuse me, I'm mouth choking. I'm gonna add about a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, just to give it that little bit of heat. And then mine did need a tiny bit more salt. So I'm gonna give that another toss. How's yours tasting?
Mine is tasting really good, and I can taste that lemon lime combo that you were talking about. It's really intriguing. It's hard to put your finger on what exactly it is, but it has to be that combo of the two.
How are the peas?
They're delicious.
I love it that I can now comfortably vouch for that substitution. People have asked about it before, and I was like, it should be delicious because the sweetness should play very well with all of these flavors. Okay, so I'm gonna plate this as if we were serving this at a dinner party. This actually is one of my favorite things to serve at a casual dinner party because you can make it in advance, big on making as many dishes in advance when entertaining as humanly possible. It's also, like I said, incredibly versatile. So whether you're serving steak, chicken, fish, it's a really easy make ahead side, and it's good at room temperature. So you can put it in the fridge, and then always with the salad, if you're serving it at a dinner party, pull the salad out 20 minutes at least, 20 minutes to 30 minutes before you serve it, because a cold salad is just sort of a shock to the palate, unless it's sort of something like a, you know, Mediterranean salad that has feta or something in it. It's meant to be cold. This, like a green salad, should always be at room temperature. So I'm going to plate this as if we were serving it for a dinner party. So let me grab some sort of fancy platter.
I'm just gonna go with a single serving bowl since it's
Yes. We'll show it 2 ways. Also, I love that I've been getting to play grown up in so many ways in this kitchen, because I'm like, oh, let me just grab one of the many serving platters that I have available, which usually in my apartment, I'm like, shall we use this one or this one? Because these are the only 2 options.
Things we don't have the luxury of having room for in New York.
I know, exactly. So this salad will serve 4 to 6 as a side. As like, if you were eating this as a meal, I would say it comfortably serves 2 to 3, depending on your hunger levels. So I'm literally going to transfer everything.
And should I just do like a nice?
Yes, you do. You're gonna represent the single serving portion, so we can show plating 2 ways.
Tell me, if you were to make this as a dinner side for a dinner party or for dinner for yourself, what would you serve with it? Would it be fish? Would it be chicken? Something else?
I personally, like, all of those things will work, but I love to serve this. There is a sesame crusted ahi that's also in the Do Dinner Time, and if you look at the picture in the book, they're like paired together. It plays really nicely, I find, with like Asian inspired flavors. So if something that has like soy sauce is going to play really well with the citruses and the jalapeno. So I love to do that, or like a really simple, like a miso glazed salmon, or there's also a miso glazed flank steak in Dude Diet Dinner Time that has like a carrot ginger dressing, and they both sort of play well together. So one thing I'm going to do here for presentation is I'm going to use my hands to do this. But this is something that I do when I'm plating a lot of things, is like you want volume.
Okay.
So typically, you know, if you get a plate of salad, like you want to you want to mound it in the center. That sounds like a weird thing to say, but like you want
I know
it
what
to
you're
have.
talking about, though. It's like a nice pyramid of salad right on the plate.
Yeah, it's very satisfying when you get a big salad pyramid in a restaurant. And I think like one of the things that I want to be very clear about, especially for the people out there who are novice chefs and have, like I said, been thrown into the deep end recently, not everything that you make has to be like Instagram ready and picture perfect. It's much more important that it tastes good. However, I will say that taking a couple extra minutes, and I literally mean a couple, like 90 seconds to 2 minutes, to make your food look pretty, especially these days when like we need to lean in to joy wherever we can find it. Making your food look pretty before you eat it has like a wonderful effect on your mood, and it just makes you really excited to like sit down and eat. And especially if you're cooking for anyone else, putting that little bit of extra effort in does go a long way. And it sounds very cliche, but as we know, cliches are true. But like food is an expression of love for a lot of people, and like putting that extra effort in for your people tends to go over well. And you know how you feel like in a restaurant when something really beautiful gets set down and you're like, so that's one of the reasons too that I wanted you to hold on to the rest of your nuts.
Okay. I've got them right here.
Is so that you can just sprinkle them on top so they're more visible. So you don't have to use, you know, all half of your reserved nuts. I would just use like a quarter of them.
Okay.
But as you can see here,
this is looking delicious, and yours looks.
Doesn't it? Like it's like such a pretty, easy thing, and that looks beautiful. And like this is something that we did together in a very short amount of time. And honestly, with like all of our chit-chatting, we could have cooked the grain from start to finish, and you have this beautiful side dish or meal that you can make ahead, enjoy for a couple days. This will keep in the fridge really well for like up to 3 days. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, this is lunch for the week, so I'm excited.
Yes. I love it, but I'm so proud of us. Like they both look so great. Now I want to take a photo. You have to take a photo of yours.
I have to take a photo. Okay. This will really be put to the test here in plating.
Yes, the styling is key. My husband always laughs at me because he knows I'm photographing something if I've turned all the lights in the kitchen off, because I'm trying to get natural lights from when I'm like huddled by the window with my dish.
Meanwhile, I'll be trying to figure out how to get my shoes in with my lunch, because shoes have to appear in everything. Right.
These days, though, I'm trying to use whatever it is to like cover my feet, because I'm never wearing shoes and it's disgusting to have bare feet. Especially with my lack of pedicure.
So I have two more quick questions for you.
Yes.
Just for everyone who's watching. First is, what has been your favorite meal that you've cooked so far these past few months while we've all been at home?
Ooh, it's a tough call. On a very basic level, I'm going to say omelets. I've been making so many omelets, and I feel like I've really perfected my omelet game up here. So we've been doing like shaved Brussels sprouts and cheddar omelets with like a little salad and this raisin walnut bread that I've been able to find from a local bakery that's heavenly. But other than that, I would say probably been doing a lot of one-pot meals, because with the 3 meals a day, I can't stand to clean up. So there is a sweet potato and black bean enchilada stew in Dude Diet Dinner Time that we've made several times now, and it also keeps really well in the fridge, and it like really hits the spot, and it also works in a lot of vegetables, which I feel like a lot of us have been carb loading, which is totally fine, but it's good to like work in a couple veggie heavy meals here and there too.
Well, I'll have to look that one up. And my second question is,
yes,
why don't you share what your silver lining has been? I think that I've personally been learning to live a little bit slower. And when, as you have your own business, you're in New York, you're going, and you're going so quickly all the time that sometimes you stop taking the time that you need for yourself or the time that you need to unplug. And so that's something that I've really been focused on these last few weeks, but would love to hear what you've been doing and what silver linings you've found.
I actually feel like I've found a lot of silver linings, which feels crazy to say, but yes, like the concept of being up in Maine and not being in New York, realizing this sounds, small, but I came up here directly from LA, which I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks for a lot of press stuff surrounding the book and events. And so I had, in my mind, I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. I ended up being there for 2 days and then coming directly to Maine. And so I basically had my suitcase of clothes. I realized I don't really need a lot of the things that I find so important in my day-to-day life in New York. And taking time, we've been every night, if it's nice out, we go and we sit outside and watch the sunset. I'm also creepily obsessed with clouds now, but things that I've never been oh, we should check out the clouds today. What kind of cloud day is it? So really the slowing down element has been great. I've also been reading a lot more. I think because we have a little bit for me, because I already work from home, I don't find that I'm saving a bunch of time on a commute or things like that, but there are more pockets of free time I've found, especially on the weekends, because there's no going everywhere. So I've been reading a lot more, which is lovely. And I also think this is the most time I've spent alone with my husband since our honeymoon, all the time. And I know that that's a blessing and a curse for some people, but just the nature of our jobs, which we're really lucky to have right now, we're not necessarily joined at the hip all day, but it's been kind of really fun for us to have this time together without social obligations or work travel, because we both travel a lot for work. So yeah, I feel like there are a lot of silver linings up here.
Yeah, similarly, I'm here at my mom's house in Florida, and this is the most time the two of us have spent together since I think I graduated high school. So like I said, I've been in my childhood bedroom, which is a little bit weird, but it's been so much fun to be at home with her and just doing, these little things and kind of practicing slow living and having this time together is invaluable. And I can't imagine, when else I would have been able to come down to Florida, spend 7 weeks, 8 weeks here, just me and my mom. It's really been special.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like people actually have been leaning into the silver lining concept slightly more. And now we may be edging out of it. People are getting really antsy. But I love it.
I have now a new go-to recipe. I also which I'm really excited to eat in the next 5 minutes. But thank you again for sharing this recipe with us, sharing your afternoon with us. It was so much fun to cook through this recipe with you, and also to hear more about what you've been up to these last few weeks. But everyone who's watching, follow along on Serena's adventures, both cooking and otherwise, on her Instagram at Serena G. Wolf. She is hilarious and real and so much fun to see how she's grown over the last few years and all that she's accomplished. It's really been amazing. So thank you so much, Serena, for sharing this with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you, and this was the best possible